In only about 30 minutes, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use if, else, and elif statements within Python through 8 different examples. We're going to be covering nearly all the different types of comparisons as well as operators. We're going to be covering nested if, else, and elifs, as well as 2 advanced examples at the very end that utilize lists as well as dictionaries. And the one that has dictionaries also includes a for loop. We have a ton to cover, so let's start programming. All right, so I have Google Colab set up. Let's start going through this. Our first example over here, we're going to start off with creating a variable called batting average, and we're going to set this equal to 0.33. So like imagine if a player had 1 hit every 3 at bats. The first time you run a cell, it's going to take a few seconds to let that load, and it's 0. Okay. So here's the syntax of our very basic if else. And let me also just really quick add in some notes on here. Sometimes in these videos, I do a bad job of labeling. So this is our example 1. So that way you guys can follow through. All right, so here's how your if else works. So the first thing we're gonna say is if, and inside over here, we're gonna have batting average, right? So if the batting average is greater than or equal to 0.3, right? So this is the condition we're trying to hit, which it'll be true because we have 0.33 and that's greater than 0.3. At the end, we're going to put a colon and we're going to say print. And inside over here, we're going to say all star level. Okay. So let's print this out now. And you can see it prints out all star level. Well, this condition is met because we have 0.333, right? And it's greater than 0.3. So we can print this out. But what happens if we don't hit that condition? So let's say I set up a new batting average, right? Our player has 1 hit in 3 at-bats. Well, now they have a 0.2. So they have 1 hit in 5 at-bats. Let's run this again. What do you guys think is going to happen? Nothing. Nothing is getting printed out because we don't have something in here called an else statement. Right? We have our if statement, but we have nothing that's going to happen if this condition isn't met. So what we want to do is add in our else. So here's how we can do that. Let's just copy this over here and we'll say if batting average is greater than 3, print all star level. I'm going to say else, and we'll have print below average. Now, you can see it prints below average. Well, I can change this again to 0.28, and we'll do that for this next example. And that's a respectable batting average in baseball. But if I go back over here and use this batting average again, it still says below average. Well, this is where we can have an elif. So we can add in multiple conditions. So let's say elif over here, batting average is greater than or equal to 0.26. Right? We should be able to print something else. And I don't know, let's just say we print decent player. Well, this will print out decent player because it fits that criteria, right? Not 0.3 all-star level, but above 0.26. And if someone's below 0.26, right, it's going to print below average. So this is our first example of using elif over here. And I also want to show you that we can add in multiple elifs. So like, let's say we want to also hit another condition, and this goes in order, right? So if criteria 1 is hit, awesome, then it doesn't do the rest. If criteria 1 is not hit, then it looks at criteria 2, right? Then it goes into criteria 3. So like, let's say I go over here to 0.22, right? So anyone there, I can say this is an average player. And now, anytime that someone has above 0.22, let's say like 0.23, 24, 25, they're going to have average player over here, right? Like, let's say I go over here and change this to 0.25. You can see it now prints out average player. So that's our very first example. Again, to reiterate what's going on, our if else, right? So we start with if, then you put your first condition over here, you put a colon at the end, and then you tab over. I just did a print statement. It doesn't always have to be a print statement, right? You can build these as part of functions, but this video, we're showing you basic if else. And your batting average over here is 0.2. I showed how you have the else. So like if you don't have anything in the else, nothing will happen. And then you can also multiple conditions with Elif. You can keep expanding this out. So let's go into our example number 2. We're going to go actually through, I think, 8 or 9 examples in total for this video. So we're going to look at multiple conditions for this one. And also I should mention that most of these are just going to build up, start super easy, and then add in a little more complexity. So baseball is more than just, your batting average. In fact, batting average probably isn't the best metric, but everyone knows what batting average is. So let's have multiple conditions with this example. Let's say we have hits equals 200 and then home runs equals 35. Okay. And we're going to go through this example over here. So let's look at like if a baseball player is an all-around good hitter or not. So we can say if hits is greater than 150 and home runs is greater than 25, right? We're taking a look at 2 different variables this time. We can say print, and we can put over here great all-around player. Awesome. And then we can have another Elif over here. So we can say Elif hits are greater than 150. Print great contact hitter. And then we can do another Elif, right? So this time we can look at just home runs, and we can say if home runs are greater than 25, great power hitter. And then we can have our else at the very end, else, and we can just say print our average player. Right? And this should say all-around player because we have 235, which meet all these thresholds. But let's say we had 100 hits, right? And we rerun this over here. Home runs is over 35, so it hits this, right? But let's say if we had 15 home runs, we'll say average player. So another example would be if they had 200 hits with 15 home runs, right? We're going to get great contact hitter. So you are able to look at multiple variables at once and compare them also in an if else. They can have multiple on one line or just one on the next one. It really doesn't matter. So next example I want to look at over here is we're going to take a look at example 3, true conditions. True conditions. And this is something that's pretty common that you will end up seeing quite a bit. So let's go over this example. We're going to have fast runner, and we're going to set this equal to true. Then we're going to say outs equals 2, balls equals 3, and then strikes equals 2. The reason why I'm talking about this like outs, balls, strikes is we're taking a look at a few different scenarios when someone could steal a base in baseball. I know it's a little technical if you don't know baseball or haven't played it, but this is going to be a really good example of using a true condition, as well as using or as well. I did not mention that, but we're also going to be implementing an or. So let's build out our example. So I'll write out the code and then I'll explain it. So we're going to look at if fast runner or outs equals 2 and balls equals 3 and strikes equals 2. And I don't know if I've explained these double equals also. I have not yet, so we'll explain that. We can say print can steal base, else print don't steal. Okay. And right, it's obviously gonna be can because we hit all those criteria. All right, so let me explain. So first off, why I just put fast runner here. So if we put just a variable here like fast runner, we assume that this is gonna be true, right? So we're saying if fast runners equals true, we can steal a base. It's not correct to put if fast runner equals true over here because fast runner could either be true or false. So that's why I put just fast runner here on itself. And then I put an or statement. So for this condition to be true, right, logic wise, we have to have one of these two working. Either this inside over here equates to true or fast runner over here equates to true. Now, inside over here, right, in baseball, to steal base sometimes, you're going to look at if there's 2 outs, there's 3 balls and 2 strikes. That means the next pitch could be the final outcome in the inning. So you might as well have your players on base trying to steal the next base to get ahead. Okay. So I'm trying to look for all 3 of these conditions, and that's where I'm using and, right? So all 3 of these conditions have to be met for it to be true. Whereas with or, only one condition has to be met for it to be true, right? So I need to make sure that outs equals 2, balls equals 3, and strikes equals 2. And these double equals, you might be a little confused, but that's kind of a comparison, right? When we're assigning a value, we only have 1, but when we're taking a look at the values, we're using 2. Kind of confused me at first when I was trying to learn Python a few years ago, but that's just how it works specifically. So double, remember when you're comparing, right? Single when you are assigning. So how this logic works is we're looking at fast runner, right? So like if right now everything is set to true, right? We have 1 and 1 right here. So let's say we had a fast runner that was false, right? Oh, we still hit this condition because outs is 2, balls 3, strikes is 2. So we can still build a base even though that this fast runner is false. But if we change any of these, right? Let's say balls is 2, this is going to equate to false because if one of these 3 conditions in here are false, with an and, you have to have everything be a true for it to have a final outcome as true. So since I have one of these that isn't correct, right? Balls is 2 and this says balls is 3, this will equate to false. But that doesn't matter if we have a fast runner, right? Because a fast runner can steal a base. And, right, we have 1 true over here. We have an or condition. So either this needs to be true or this needs to be true. So hopefully that made sense. The best way to do these is practice, to be honest with you. So I tried having a little bit more of a complex example. I'm going to show you actually the opposite of this now. So what we're going to do is example 4, and I'm going to show not and not equals. So I'm essentially going to flip this over, right? So I'm going to say if not, which I'm not capitalized, but not fast runner or outs don't equal 2, balls don't equal 3, and strikes don't equal 2. This should be don't steal, otherwise steal. And this is how you do the opposite, right? Not fast runner. And I can obviously steal base because we have a fast runner right now, and we have all these other conditions that are met. This means outs is not equal to 2, balls not equal to 3, and strikes are not equal to 2. So that's just a way that you could negate these, right? Either not or exclamation mark with equal sign to the right. That is going to be the opposite. All right. There's example 4. I think we're on example 5 now. That makes sense. So we're on example 5, and we're going to look at nested conditions. So nested conditions. And we'll set up 2 variables. We'll say runs scored equals 7. And then we'll have innings played equals 9. And you can nest multiple ifs. So what we're going to say is if innings played, we're going to say it's equal to 9. Remember, double equals. We're going to have a colon at the end. And then we can have another if statement in here. So we can say if runs scored is greater than equal to 6, we're going to say print high scoring game, else print moderate scoring game. And then we can have another else statement on the outside too. So we can say else, and we can say print game is not complete. And I know that baseball has changed some rules where you can technically complete a game less than 9 innings if it rains out. And there used to be 7-inning doubleheaders and stuff like that. I'm just making this basic, right? So we have this over here, high scoring game. So this is how the logic works on this. So first we take a look at this first if statement, if innings played is 9, right? And then it jumps into this if else. If we don't have 9, it's going to print game is not complete. So if, like, let's say I have innings played, we put 5 in here and I rerun this, game is not complete, right? So it starts off with this if else. And then if this first if else, this condition is met, then it moves into this next one. So now we look at if a run scored is greater than or equal to 6, which in this case, right, we do have more than that, but we exited through here. So let me change this back into 9, right? So now we're in here, we're looking at 7 runs scored. Well, if it is 7, which is greater than or equal to 6, we have a high scoring game. If it's less, let's say we have 4 runs scored, right? This is going to be a moderate scoring game. And you can also just put Elif over here if you really wanted to, right? And you can just say Elif runs scored is greater than or equal to 3. You can say print the moderate scoring game. We're going to actually put that there because that makes more sense, right? And then else we can just put over here low scoring game. So now, right, it's going to say moderate, but if I change this into 2, low scoring game. And you can continue to add complexity as you want. But I think this is a pretty basic example for you guys to get started with nested conditions. So for these next 2 examples, I wanted to make them a little bit more advanced. We're going to be taking a look at lists as well as dictionaries. So if you haven't learned about those, I do have videos on my channel. I recommend you watching those first before we jump into these examples. You can skip to example number 8 if you want to just continue watching this video. But if you do understand a little bit about lists as well as dictionaries, and you have a somewhat of an understanding of how a for loop works, let's continue moving forward. So the first one we're going to take a look at is a list. So let's do that. So what we're going to do over here is team list. And inside over here, we're going to have Yankees. Then we're going to have Red Sox. Then we're going to have Dodgers, Cubs, and Rays. Always got to throw my local team here, the Rays, in all of these lists. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab an element from this team list. So we're going to say team A equals team list. And we'll just grab the first element, which is 0. Okay. And team B is going to be the same, right? So again, we're grabbing the same exact element in the same exact team list. So what we're going to do, and this is something you'll see sometimes with lists, we're going to say if team A is team B, and we'll say print same object in memory, right? Else print different memory object. So here's the thing with is, right? It's gonna be the same object in memory because both of these look at team list being 0, right? So this is a little bit different than the double equal sign. So these have to have the same exact source, right? Which I'm looking at team list 0. Whereas if we just took a look at if, whoops, I wasn't paying attention here, but if team A equals team B, print same team name, right? This looks exactly at the string, right? And both these are going to be Yankees, so it's going to be true as well. Same team name. So is, which you'll see frequently used with list, looks at the same object in memory, whereas double equals is looking at the same exact value. So that's the first example over here. Example 7, we're going to take a look at dictionaries. So example 7, dictionaries, right? And inside over here, we're going to have player stats. So player stats, and we're going to make this a fun one. So inside our player stats, we're going to just have 3 players. So we'll have player 1, and we'll put over here another dictionary. So inside, we'll have a name. The name on this one is going to be, say, Ryan. Which actually need to put in quotes. Then we'll have hits inside over here. And then integer 1 to 20. And lastly, we'll have home runs, which actually put that there. And we'll say there's 30. Now, I'm going to be lazy, and instead of typing out all these, I'm just going to copy and paste, and we'll make a few changes. So Nolan, we're going to say none, which is essentially null, and we'll put 20. And then let's think of a player. We'll just put Trout. And then hits, we'll say 90. And home runs this time, we'll say none, which would never happen with Trout, but let's have some fun with this. So also let me remove that last comma. So we have one dictionary here and then a dictionary inside. A little bit complicated, but we're going to have one last complicated example before we do something pretty basic. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a for loop. We're going to say for player and stats in player stats items. And put a colon there. Let's start this out. So if stats over here, we're going to say hits is none. Print, and we're going to do an F string. Let's say stats. We're going to grab the name and put this over here. Does not have any hits available. Else print, and we'll just literally print this, but make some modifications. Has, and we'll have hits. And then we're just going to put over here stats, and we should just put hits. And we can do the same thing for home runs as well. So let's do that. And just have home runs. So why I did this, I know I made it a little complicated for this tutorial, but what we're taking a look at is for player stats in these items, right? If stats hits is none, print does not have any hits available, else then, and actually, hold on, I made one mistake. So I put player 1 each time, so maybe run that. Now it should work. Okay, so let me explain this code because I had that stupid bug. Make sure you change player 1 through 3, make them different. So we're taking a look at each player and their stats, right? And we're taking a look at the items part of this dictionary. If the hits is none, right, which is this one over here, we're going to print out does not have any hits available, else we print out the hits. So we're taking a look at each of these, right? So Ryan has 120 hits, Nolan has no hits available, Trout has 90 hits, right? Hits, that's the first thing we take a look at for this if. Then we go into this next if statement, home runs, right? Does not have any home runs available, home runs, right? So Ryan has 30 home runs, right? Nolan has 20 home runs, and then Trout has none available. So you can have multiple if else inside of a for loop, and you can also include dictionaries and also multiple dictionaries because we have one dictionary on the outside and then we have a dictionary inside. Again, pretty complicated example, but I just wanted to show you like you can build up the complexity on if else statements. It's not as easy all the time as right? Like our first example over here, where batting average is 0.25, right? You can do quite a lot with it. I wanted to show you one last thing over here. So example number 8, example 8, it's a ternary expression. So ternary expression, and here's how this works out. So a baseball Hall of Famer, if they're retired for 5 years, they're eligible for the Hall of Fame. So what I'm going to say over here is retired years equals 6. Okay. And we're going to do one more line. We're going to say Hall of Fame equals eligible if retired years is greater than equal to 5, else we're going to say not eligible. So a little bit different syntax than I showed you guys earlier. Personally, I like our basic syntax right over here. I like this a lot better, but this is something you'll see with if else. So I just wanted to do this as kind of as the last example. And we can go over here and print Hall of Fame. And you can see eligible since it's greater than 6 or greater than 5. If I put 3 here, not eligible. So how this works is we assign a Hall of Fame. We're going to assign this to eligible. And then you take a look at if greater than 5, else we're not eligible. So one more time, just to kind of explain this video really fast. So if you put your condition here, you put a colon at the end, you tab over and you set whatever you want. You can assign a variable to something. You can print things out. You can do a lot more. But that's the basic if else, right? Then you have an elif. So just like if this first condition isn't met, can we make the second condition? Can we make possibly a third condition? Else we have like a default that we print out over here. And that's how we set this up over here. We can also take a look at multiple conditions through variables, right? I showed you hits and home runs. We can only take a look at one or take a look at both on here. Then we also took a look at or, right? So one condition has to be true for it to work. I also showed you guys and, where every condition has to be met for it to be equal to true, right? This example over here. And you can combine or with ands as well. So that's really great. As well as your true and false with your true conditions, right? If you have a true condition, you just put the variable over here. Same with false, right? You can just say if fast runner. We can implement the opposite. If not true, right? Or not false. And then we can have not equal, which is exclamation mark with an equal sign over here. I showed you nested conditions. You can have multiple ifs within an if, also elifs within an if. Again, a lot of complexity. Showed you lists as well as is, which you'll see for objects in memory. I showed you how we can utilize dictionaries as well and for loops with a very complicated example. And lastly, ternary expressions, where we can assign a variable like this Hall of Fame and just say eligible if retired years greater than 5, otherwise not eligible. Hey, you made it to the end of this video, which means you probably learned something new about if-else statements. I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I make these videos for free, and I try to upload at least 2 to 3 videos every single week, which takes a ton of effort. With that being said, if you are still learning Python, I have a full playlist linked down below, as well as some other videos that you may want to check out, or if you just want to click on the screen, it's right over here.